Well, good morning, my little rays of sunshine. How are you all doing out there today? I'm Michelle the Introvert, and today I have been thinking a lot about my vegetable garden. Tomorrow is the first day of spring, March 20th, 2025, of course. And here in Canada, spring starts on March 20th. So I've been thinking a lot about my vegetable garden, thinking a lot about seeds and planting and germination, but I've also been thinking about a few memories of the past, gardening memories and garden thoughts. And if you want to spend some time with me here this morning, for just a few minutes, we can talk about my seeds, look at my vegetable seeds, we can talk about this, we can talk about that, but we can definitely talk about some gardening memories of my past. Before I share with you all the seeds that I've bought so far this year, I'd like to share my first memory with you. And this memory has to do with my childhood growing up. It's a special gardening memory, and it has to do with my grandparents, a very special, precious memory, my mom's parents in particular. My grandparents had a 100-acre farm in Ontario, and going to the farm was absolutely a thrill. It was absolutely my favorite place to go, going to the farm. When Mom would say, "Oh, we're going to the farm," I was just always so excited. It was such a fantastic place to go. My grandfather had several horses, a couple of ponies, a donkey. He had free-range chickens, a beautiful barnyard, a beautiful farmhouse, and my grandmother worked very, very hard as well. But my grandfather was basically in charge of the vegetable garden. My grandmother had a full-time job during the time period when I was probably like 9, 10, and in my teenage years, my grandmother had a full-time job. Before that, my grandfather, when his children were growing up, like my mom and my aunts and uncles, my grandfather had a job, of course, where he earned money. But when I was growing up, I remember my grandmother having a full-time job, paying job, and my grandfather stayed home. He looked after the fields, he looked after the animals, and he looked after the vegetable garden. And he had a wonderful vegetable garden. His carrots, I remember pulling the carrots out, well, only a couple, to give to the horses. And they were like long carrots. They were so healthy, and the horses loved them. But he had a wonderful garden, and everything grew so well. And I remember being out in the garden with him while he was doing some work, and it was just a very pleasant, wonderful memory. Going to be with my grandparents on their farm, just the whole environment of being around the horses, the chickens, the farm, the farmhouse, being around family, being in the garden, just very, very special memory. Here are the seeds that I picked up this year, and I'm probably going to put the year like 2025 on each of these packets so I don't get my new seeds mixed up with my older seeds. But I have a nice selection, I think. I've got yellow and green beans here, cucumbers here. Oh, I guess I should have put these cucumbers in this collection. I've got a nice collection of cucumber seeds. Cucumbers are one of my favorite things in the summertime, and I plan to make some dill pickles. Thus, I've got a couple packs of dill right there, close to the cucumbers. And a nice selection of carrots. When they get growing really, really well, I plan to wash them up, cut them in my food processor, and then freeze them. Carrots freeze pretty good. So that really helps out during the winter months when I can grow and freeze my own carrots. I've got some peppers, some spinach, tomatoes. I think I must be missing a couple tomato packages. I'll have to look around. They can't be too far. Pumpkin, Josh likes pumpkin. Zucchini up there. I plan to freeze a lot of the zucchini. Spinach, basil and parsley, and of course can't forget the bumblebees, so I have some flower seeds there for them. I like potato salad, so we're going to be growing some radishes. So I have a really nice selection here. A nice selection so far for my new seeds, and I'm going to get them all labeled like I mentioned, so that way they don't get mixed up with the older seeds that I have. I want to be able to set them apart. So I think I'm going to do that now, put the year on all of these packets. I found my other tomato seed packets, as you can see. I knew they couldn't be too far. And I also found this packet of peppers and yellow beans as well. And the other seeds that I showed you, I put the year 2025 on the bottom of the packets. So they're all labeled and ready to go, I'm happy to say. And these didn't cost me very much, the seeds that you see and the previous seeds that I showed you. They were only like between 99 cents per pack to $2, $2 to $3. But most of them were like 99 cents average price. So it's definitely not going to be an expensive garden this year. Now I'll share with you memory number 2. Memory number 2. So I think that maybe now I'll talk about my dad's mom, my grandmother. And she also lived in Ontario, but unlike my mom's parents, she didn't live on a farm. She lived in town, so she had a small kitchen garden in her backyard. And I remember growing up, she had raspberry bushes in her little kitchen garden in the backyard. She had tomato plants. She had a variety of things. And I remember going out there in the backyard with Grandma and just her working around her garden. She just loved her garden. She loved her garden. She almost like lived for the springtime. She absolutely loved gardening time and planting and watching things grow. And inside her house, her lovely house, she would put the green tomatoes on the windowsill so that the sunshine coming through the window would help ripen the green tomatoes and make them turn red. Got a lot of special memories of going to my grandma's house as well, my dad's mom's house. And when Grandma turned 90, she moved from Ontario down here to Nova Scotia, and she lived with my dad and stepmother. They had actually built on a granny suite onto their house, so Grandma could live with them in her own corner. She was very independent, even though she was 90 years old. But at the same time that she had her granny suite and she was independent, there was a door going from Grandma's to my dad's, so that Dad could kind of go in and check on her every day. Every day he'd check on her. And as she got older, Dad would cook her meals and take them over to her and things like that. But with Grandma moving down here to Nova Scotia, Dad built a greenhouse because he knew she loved gardening. And he had also built those, what do they call those? You know, the risen beds, like the beds that are like, you don't have to bend over very far to plant and grow things. I forget what those are called, but you pretty much have the idea. It's those garden beds where they're quite tall. Yes, so they had that for Grandma, and she absolutely loved gardening. She loved growing things in the backyard at my dad's property. So I have a lot of good memories, and I'd often take Stacy and Joshua as they were growing up to spend time with their great-grandmother, and it was just very, very good quality time. Good memories. I have a couple of easy to grow kits, and these are always so nice, and every year I look forward to getting 2 or 3. This one is basil, this one is tomato, and we're probably going to start those next month, start germinating them at the end of April. So that'll be a lot of fun, and Joshua will probably want to help with those, so that's always a good time for him. And Josh enjoys being out in the garden. So it'll be nice. It'll be really nice to get those growing. Time for memory number 3. And this is quite a sweet memory, actually. And this memory takes place before we moved into this apartment here. It took place in the apartment that we were living at before this one, this small apartment. The apartment that we were living in before was right in town, and there was a community garden not very far from that apartment. Our daughter Stacy wanted to have her own gardening plot. I had a gardening plot, but Stacy, our daughter, wanted to have her own gardening plot since at that particular time, she had her own place. When she became an adult, she wanted to get her own apartment, but in doing so, she also wanted to have her own gardening plot. And this is where it becomes quite cute and sweet, actually. Our daughter loves dill pickles, so in her gardening plot, she only planted 2 things. Can you guess what that might be? She grew cucumbers and dill, and that's all she grew. Just those 2 things. And once her cucumbers and dill grew to the maturity that they needed to be, she went over to her grandmother's. So this would be Gerald's mom's house. She went over to Gerald's mom's house, Doreen, and the 2 of them had a dill pickle making day. The 2 of them spent the day together. I'm sure Doreen loved it, having Stacy there, but Doreen wanted to help Stacy make some dill pickles, so they spent the day there making dill pickles from the cucumbers and the dill that Stacy grew in that community garden. On my couch, I only have some of the things that I'll be needing and using for my kitchen garden this year. Gerald has some twine that he bought this year to help with the fencing, some cable ties to help with the fencing, and I bought some all-purpose potting mix there in the back. And I have some netting here to keep the deer out. Last year I had no trouble with the deer getting into the garden. I can happily say, I'm relieved to say, that they did not get into my garden. Between the fencing and this here netting that goes over the top of the fencing like a blanket, the deer did not go in my garden. 2 thumbs up. I was so happy that the deer didn't get into my garden. And hopefully I'll have a successful year that way this year too. These will be for germinating my tomato seeds and my green pepper seeds, because they require a longer growing season, so I'll be starting them in the house. Probably at the end of next month, the end of April, I'll start growing the tomato seeds and the green pepper seeds. Time for memory number 4. Now this is kind of an interesting one. This takes place back in the day when I was in my late 20s and early 30s. Now around that time period, we lived in the country. And actually things were quite financially tight for us. I was looking after Stacy and Joshua. They were just little kids. And Gerald was working at a full-time job. And things were quite financially tight. And I thought, well, it might be a good idea for us to plant a garden, a vegetable garden, just to help out a little bit more with the groceries and food in the house. So, being as young as I was, I put my thinking cap on, and it was quite financially tight, like I mentioned, so financially tight that we didn't have enough money to rent a tiller for the ground. So I was bound and determined to have a garden, a vegetable garden. So what did I do? I was young, remember? I could do it then. I couldn't do it now, but I did it back then. I wanted a garden. I was bound and determined to have a garden. So with shovel in hand, I went to the backyard and started shoveling. I was allowed to do this. My landlords let me do this. I shoveled up some of the backyard, and we lived in the country, so it was fine, right? I shoveled up a plot of ground, and it wasn't small. It took me quite a few hours of shoveling And I made a lot of sods with my shovel. It took me quite a few hours. Yeah, it took me some time, but I was determined. And so I had a lot of sods that I had shoveled up. And of course the garden was a rectangle shape. And it was a nice sized garden. And I let those sods dry out over a few days. And once they were all dried, I went out and spent quite a few more hours shaking the soil out of each sod. Very big job. Definitely for young people. I wouldn't be able to do it at the age I am at now, but when I was younger, I could do that. I shook out the soil, I shook out the sod, put the remnants of the sod to the side of the garden, and I had a beautiful garden full of nice soil and sand, and that is what we grew our vegetables in. And I was able to plant quite a bit. I planted green beans, tomatoes, carrots, you name it, I grew it. It was a lot of work. Very rewarding though. I'm glad I did it. And it saved us some money. It took a lot of time to do it and a lot of hard work. I wouldn't be able to do that now that I've been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. I wouldn't be able to do that type of hard labor, but I'm definitely glad that I did it back then. And I was able to grow a lot of vegetables, freeze a lot of food, and it definitely helped with our grocery bill. I'm really excited to look through this box of seeds, and these are my older seeds. I haven't looked through them at all since last spring and summer, so it's going to be such a joy just to go through these again, just to see what I have as a reminder. These are marigolds. I'll plant some of these for the bumblebees, they'll like them. But I've got quite a few of the older seeds, and of course I'm very aware that some of these may not germinate because they're older. There's a nice sunflower package there. But I'm excited to go through them. Oh, there's more flowers for the bumblebees. Yes, it's been since last spring and summer, so it'll be a good reminder of what I have and what I don't need to buy, too. But, of course, you know me. If I see more seeds on for a good price at the stores, I'm going to get them. Oh, there's some beet seeds there, too. I'm very excited. I don't know why, but the garden brings me so much joy. These pumpkins. Joshua really likes having pumpkins in the fall. He likes to draw smiley faces on his pumpkins. I'll probably germinate these as well for Josh. He just loves them. Plus, I like to freeze pumpkin too. Oh, I've got lots of basil there that I can dehydrate. Parsley. I've got like a little bit of everything here. Yes, indeed. So, oh, there's more carrots. Lettuce as well. Lettuce is so great. And then with me growing tomatoes, that'll taste good for bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwiches. So this is very exciting, my friends. I just love this time of the year. It's like Christmas time, but in the spring. I've got more beans. Yay, I've got more beans. I'll probably grow those too. Can't get enough beans. And then there's some beautiful flowers for the bumblebees as well. So this is great. Alexandra gave me this. Thanks again, Alexandra. Last spring I was able to germinate some of these, and I still have quite a few left in there, so I'll germinate those for the bumblebees too. We're at Gardening Thought number 5, and it is a gardening thought. It's not a gardening memory. This is an interesting gardening thought that I've thought about over a few years. If someone were to say to me, Michelle, you have won a little farmhouse and it has about 3 or 4 acres, that would be like a dream, a gardener's dream. Well, it would be my gardener's dream, that's for sure. So this is not so much a gardening memory as it is a gardening dream. And chances of this coming true is like slim to none. But if someone were to say, Michelle, you won a little farmhouse with 3 or 4 acres of land, that would definitely be a dream. And what would I want on that land? This is part of the dream. What would I want on that land? I would want a small apple orchard. I would want a very large blackberry bush. I would want a raspberry bush, some blueberry bushes. I would like different types of fruit trees like pear trees and plum trees. Any type of fruit trees that will grow. Maybe even some peach trees. That would be nice. I've heard that some peach trees grow here in Nova Scotia, so that would be awesome. But any type of fruit trees like that, I would just love to have. And I wouldn't want to have to plant them. I would want them to be already growing. I would want to be able to move in and those trees would already be growing. I wouldn't want to have to plant them. Yes, that would be like a huge dream. But then also too, I would want a fenced-in area for a very large garden. And I'd love to have a large rhubarb patch and a nice special space where I can grow all the rest of my vegetables. And perhaps on the outskirts of my property, there would be a river or a stream. That would be like really, really nice. And as a side note, not very many black flies, and not very many mosquitoes. That's a dream. Isn't that a nice dream? Oh, and also being a small farmhouse or being a small farm, to have some chickens. Now, my grandfather had chickens. For a small amount of time, my dad had chickens. So having chickens is definitely part of my childhood and growing up. So if I had a dream farm property, there would definitely have to be some chickens on my property for fresh eggs. And I would give some of those fresh eggs to Stacy too, of course. I would definitely share. But that would be a very special dream. All my life we have rented. All of our married life we've rented. So we've never owned our own property. But if someone were to say, Michelle, you want a farmhouse, you want some farmland, that would be definitely a dream, a gardening dream. But coming out of my dream, when I look at the apartment that I'm in now, I'm very content. I'm very happy with where God has us. I have a wonderful kitchen garden in the backyard, and I have places where I can go pick crab apples for free. So, and I like to buy the sales in the stores. So all of those things bring me joy and contentment and peace as well. I'm very content to be here, and I'm content with just the life I'm living right now. And I sure am happy. I'm more than content having friends like you. And I'm very joyful and thankful and grateful for Gerald, Stacy, and Joshua, and my family and friends too. Well, my friends, it's been a pleasure spending this time with you. I was really looking forward to making this video and going through my seeds, and just us having a chit chat was just so very, very nice. I'm glad that you're with me here this morning. And if you like this vlog, please give me the YouTube thumbs up or press that subscribe button. That would be great. And I have more vlogs coming up, so stay tuned. And I'll talk to you all soon. Talk to you soon, my friends. Bye. Bye.